Oppenheimer was almost 2 hours of an excellent movie that I greatly enjoyed. But you might say that the movie is 3 hours long actually. To which I reply that that's precisely my point. The movie's biggest problem in my opinion is that it culminated too early. The scene with Trinity Test was an absolutely fantastic moment. Maybe not the explosion itself, but everything leading up to it. All this build up and countdown. I watch a lot of movies and shows, and the countdown was probably the most tense moment I have ever seen. For an entire minute I was hanging on the edge of my seat expecting something breathtaking. And then the explosion happened. I maybe thought it would be more grandiose, but then I reminded myself that the movie was made with almost no CGI and using mostly practical effects. If there was CGI, then very little CGI. The scene would have been much more impressive if it was some sort of sci-fi movie with computer-generated nuclear explosion. But Nolan and his crew were trying to make the whole scene feel more real. They were trying to capture the explosion through the eyes of one person. And keeping this in mind, I think the scene was really good. Definitely the best scene in the movie to me. At first the explosion is silent, but then the sound of the explosion comes. The scientists and military were watching the test from 3 different shelters, all at least 5 miles or 8 kilometers away from the point zero. The speed of sound is 343 meters per second, so simple calculation tells us that the sound of the explosion reached those shelters in 23.46 seconds. When I watch movies in the theater, I often check my watch to remember at what point some really memorable moment takes place in order to rewatch it again later. And when the Trinity scene was over, there was still over an hour of the movie. My expectations totally didn't match how the movie ended in reality. Oppenheimer is based on the biographical novel American Prometheus. If I were familiar, more or less at least, with the book, I would have known better what to expect. The movie is a biopic and the focus is Oppenheimer's life, his studies, achievements, political activity, internal conflicts and fears. This is not a movie about war or nuclear weapons. In a way, this is a court drama. Throughout the entire movie, the judge and the court are trying to figure out whether Robert J. Oppenheimer is a communist spy or not, based on his membership of the American Communist Party in the 1930s, and whether he works to help the Soviet Union. Oppenheimer is not gonna show you war. The most disappointing thing to me is that we don't see the A-bombs being dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This is what I was waiting for after the Trinity scene. Maybe not the explosions themselves, but it was the aftermath, a giant mushroom cloud 40,000 feet high. That was the height of the little boy cloud. The bomb dropped at Hiroshima. Fat Man, the bigger bomb dropped on Nagasaki, had a 60,000 feet mushroom cloud. That's approximately 12 and 18 kilometers respectively. This scene from Marvel's Eternals comes to mind, where they demonstrated a huge mushroom cloud, and it was really impressive. Then again, Christopher Nolan is a huge nerd, and he really wanted not to use CGI in Oppenheimer. That's why the Trinity test is the only explosion we see in the movie. I think it is a wasted opportunity, because Nolan could definitely use real footage of the bombs, just to demonstrate the catastrophic effect of A-bombs and how devastating it was. This is what I expected to see. After the H-bomb was mentioned, I also expected to see the Castle-Brala test for some reason. But again, this is a biopic about Robert Oppenheimer, and not a movie about nukes. This is why I saw some people leaving the theater in the middle of the movie. It might not be for everyone. Some people who aren't really into history might get bored. This is how I would formulate my problem in a nutshell. Everything is building up to the Trinity test. This is what all the characters are working for. This is a defining moment. And everything that happens afterwards just doesn't have the same air of importance. The lack of nuclear explosions might be my personal problem. But Oppenheimer also has technical issues. I am not gonna be talking about the movie's visual side. I'm sure there will be multiple video essays on YouTube talking about how Nolan filmed Oppenheimer on IMAX cameras, how the nuclear test was filmed, and what techniques were used. I personally think Oppenheimer looks really great. I don't have any problems with this. But I absolutely do have problems with the sound mixing. The dialogues are hard to hear at times. This is the way Nolan experiments with sound design in these movies, I get it. But it just makes understanding what characters are saying unnecessarily harder than it should be. The problem was in Tenet and now here. Nolan should change his approach to sound mixing. More balance between soundtracks, sound effects, and dialogues to give the best experience to viewers. I watched Oppenheimer in the theater and had hearing problems for the first time since Tenet. I was not disappointed by the movie. Some of my expectations were not met, but I greatly enjoyed Oppenheimer nonetheless. To me, this is the best Nolan movie in almost a decade since Interstellar. I really tried to like Dunkirk, but I couldn't. I tried to like Tenet, but I couldn't either. But Oppenheimer I loved. It's a great movie indeed with great performances and some really good cinematography. Definitely one of the most impressive movies of the year.